people who are going to want to learn about the map bit, particularly later on. So that's us recording. Okay, yep. Otherwise I would be in trouble if I forgot to do that. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming. This is very much our Heritage Cafe to celebrate and launch our new digital map, which we're all very excited about. As I said, the website development is our last stage, and hopefully we will get that done between ourselves before the end of the project, end of the year. But in between whilst, I've just created something that's a sort of placemaker that we can have a little look at, and it'd be really great to have your feedback as to what you think we should be including for the forum to be having on our website. And it would be very interesting to hear from you later on, and seeing what could happen, even if it's a wish list in the future. We have a narrow remit and a small budget for just now, just to upgrade and make it a little bit fresher. But it would be really interesting to see what a future website, or the face of the forum, and what you might think of might be useful and interesting to have in the future. So have a wee think while Sarah's telling us about the map, to see what you might think. We will be doing other bits of things, so we'll look at the website afterwards. A few of you had the link when you were in early, so you can go and have a nosy if you want. But I would like to now pass over to Sarah, who can do all the sharing that she wants to do. Yeah. And she can show us what she's been at and show us the new map.
Okay, I shall just share my screen. Let's make sure I'm sharing the correct thing.
Not hearing you, Sarah.
Is
everybody else?
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes. Yeah, a me problem then.
Okay. So hopefully you can see my screen.
Yep.
Yeah. Can you see something that looks like a web map?
Yeah. Yep.
Great. Okay. So when you open the web link from the forum website, this is how it should open. So you'll open with a nice view of Scotland, and you can see all of the data layers there. All looks very busy. We've got the title over there in the left top hand corner, Argyll and the Isles Heritage Map, and the various functionalities that I'll go through with you. So hopefully it'll be displayed like that for you. And it works on desktops, on laptops, and it works quite well on mobile apps as well. So on your mobile phone, it should be reasonable usage as well. So there are some basic functions. So over on the top left, you've got zoom in, and you've got zoom out. And you can zoom to your heart's content, and you can also use your mouse wheel if you're on a laptop or on a desktop to zoom in and out as well, like that. Okay. There are I'll talk through these little functions over here, which are search functions on the left hand side, where you can see the hand is in a minute. But first off, top right hand side, if you can see, when I hover over that little folder structure there, this shows you all of the data layers that there are actually on the web map. And this is really important because it kind of like helps you to actually focus on what you're interested in. So essentially what you've got there are the list of what's being shown. So you've got the archives at the top there, and you can see that the reason that is quite zoomed out when you first open it up, because it's showing not only the archive sites within Argyll and Bute, it's also showing them for up in Inverness and Edinburgh and Glasgow as well, so that you can pinpoint where there are other Argyll sites, sites beyond Argyll. They don't have any other kind of contact details present, but those could be added later if that was required, because this is obviously something that's in development and progress, and people can feed back and say what they want more of or less of, or what would be interesting to try and do with it or add to it themselves. So this is all up for development, really. We also have a little symbology there for, so there's castles, churches and graveyards, clans, where the clans are based, museums, listed buildings, scheduled monuments, and then probably the most, why it's so busy, that little map, is because it's got all of the terrestrial and the maritime sites from Canmore for Argyll and Bute. So even under those, there are over, let me see, about 20,000 features just from Canmore that have been cut and loaded into this map. So that's why it's looking so busy there. So all of the sites that have been loaded into Canmore for Argyll and Bute are now showing on this map. So if you want to speed it up at any point, sometimes turning those, so if I turn off the Canmore terrestrial site, you can see where those appearing and disappearing there. So also in the layers, it's not only your features, your points of interest, your heritage, so your archaeological sites, your museums, all those kinds of things, scheduled monuments. You've also got further down that little key, you've got your mapping as well. So these are actual layers to show you kind of background information. So the first one that you can see there is the open street map, which is a simple mapping. Then you've got topographical mapping, which shows you the kind of like the mountains and the valleys. So it gives you sort of like elevation data. And then under that, we've also got the National Library of Scotland links into some of the historic mapping as well, which can be useful. Obviously, you're looking at heritage sites. This can be really useful background information to where you're focusing on. So if I go through those, you can see, you can turn those on and off. And then right at the bottom there, you've got a base layer, which is the Esri satellite imagery. And it's actually all loads pretty speedily, actually, considering how much data there is on there. What we'll do now is we'll just go through and I can show you sort of like some of the functionality. So if I go over to the little kind of like spyglass over here, and this is a basic search function. So if I type in there, let's say Oban, and then enter that, and it brings up, now what you have to understand is this is pretty much, this is a global search engine. So when I put in Oban, it will give you kind of all sorts of options for Oban, even in New South Wales. So this is a map that you could use for other functions as well. If you wanted to sort of like measure how the distance between one place and another, you could use it for that as well. But I'm just going to click on that top one there because I know that's where I'm interested in, and it will fly you to Oban. So there we go. There we are. So you can zoom in a little bit more and you start to see the spread of all your different heritage features. So again, we're going back over here, you can start to see, oh, there's castles, and we can see our listed buildings, our Canmore sites, and even some of our maritime sites there. Now, if we want to focus a little bit more, the little binocular function, if you click on that, this is a search engine for all of the features from the terrestrial Canmore. So you can then do, you can break it down to those and you can search through those as well. So if I then, let's just put Oban in again, and it will list all of those little blue diamonds are listed for that area that have Oban actually within the title. So I can look down through that and I can think, what would I like to look at? So you can see it's got everything in there: distillery, Corn Park, new hospital site, town centre. Let's have a look at and say, where is the Oban War Memorial? And what it should do, if you notice, it actually moved the map and it's circled where the site for the Oban War Memorial is. So if I just click on that, that will give you the information about that site that's held on Canmore. So it's got the name, it's got the site type, so it's a war memorial, 20th century. It's got when it was entered into Canmore, and it's also got when it was last updated. And importantly, it's got the link to, so I can click on that, and on another page, that will come up within Canmore, and you can do more research on that or have a look at what's there through the images, through the collection. So, but that's opened in another page, so I can go back to my site there. And if I, let's say, I zoom out a little bit and I want a little bit more kind of like idea of what's going on in that area, I'll just zoom out. Oh, zoomed out a little bit too much. So if I go over here and I'm going to go, let's have a look without the OpenStreetMap. That's the topography. Let's have a look at some of the more historic mapping, and I can switch that off. And so you can see some of the historic mapping that lies beneath that. If you want to do a comparison of what it's like now and what was there in Oban beforehand, you can have a look at this. Equally, you can turn all those off, all of the maps, and you can just look at the imagery beneath it as well. So we want to, let's have a look at somewhere else that I know that there's been some recent updates. So let's go to, first off, do a search for Ling. And let's go, it's got colour pool on there. And it will take you to Ling on the island there. And if we then go to the little binoculars, again, go Ling, you can do a search for specific sites from Canmore that you're interested in. So if we just go down, let's say Ling. So again, it's moved the map and it shows you which site of interest with the little circle there. So I'll just zoom out again. Okay, let's do that again. So Ling. And then it identifies it on the web map. Let's add back some of our mapping. We're back to the OpenStreetMap. So again, I look in there and it's got, we've got some field Ling and Ling, field boundary, post-medieval. And the interesting thing there is that the entry date for that and the last update is 2022. So this is really recent. And if we have a look at some of these, cultivation remains, also 2022. Also, there's a post-medieval hut there, also 2022. So we know that those are quite recent. So let's have a click on one of those, open it up on Canmore. And we say, oh, that's interesting. It's obviously opened up 2022. So it tells you the information about it and where the information has come from. So in this particular circumstance, it says a hut that measures 6.5 meters, blah, blah, blah. Transversely overall is evident in visualizations derived from airborne laser scanning. So that's interesting because we know that Ling, back in 2022, they had a LiDAR survey done. So this information has gone into Canmore from sites that they found on the LiDAR survey. So that's interesting to me. because I then went back to see if I could get hold of the LiDAR. And that's another part of, obviously, what we're saying about this data is that it's quite dynamic, and you can go search for it. So I also, hopefully, if I can open up, let's see, there we go. So in order to see what LiDAR is available, I've now gone to the Scottish Remote Sensing portal, and it's actually only quite recently, in the last few months, we can see over on the left-hand side here, if I go down, it says, okay, where is it? There it is, there we go. So LiDAR from GIS, and you can actually see that's now been uploaded onto this website, and I've been able to download it myself because I wanted to see how they've been using the data to add it onto the Canmore site. Now it's actually showing up on my web map as well. So I downloaded that, added it into a QGIS project, so a GIS, and actually sort of created a visualization from that, so that you could actually see all of the different features within that LiDAR, so you can see all the different elevation. And the little points on here that I've loaded are those that are in the web map. So these are from the Canmore site, and you can see in the information there, you've got there it's Ling, it's agriculture and subsistence, cultivation remains, and I think up here we've got that little hut that I was talking about that was on Canmore. Yeah, hut post-medieval. So if I zoom into that, you can actually see how that they've got that feature from the LiDAR. So that's going through the whole process. So 2022, they had a laser scan done, got LiDAR done. They processed that, and they were able to identify features from the LiDAR. So it's gone from there, and then it's been also updated in Canmore. What do I go back to? So there we go. It's been derived from their airborne laser scanning data. Hut measures 6.5 meters, which I did measure it, and it is around 6.5 meters. And that's now showing up on my web map as well. And you can see where it was last updated, 2022. So that's the whole, from sort of beginning to end, and it's now turned up in our web map. So this is probably pretty up to date this now. So it's only since I've created this web map, and if there's been any other data loaded onto Canmore recently, or if someone themselves, if there's something they know is out there, but they can't find it on here, then those are the kinds of things that we can start to update this with. And obviously we can also then enables us to put in a form to Canmore and update that as well. So I think that's fairly self-explanatory. And I think, again, the symbology, I think, because I talked this through with some of the trustees and on the forum, and it's all, again, fairly simple symbology to enable people to kind of know what they're looking for, quite easily to navigate through. So really what we're looking for, I think, Jill, is feedback on the workings and how useful it is, and like I say, what it would be nice to maybe add, or if it's too busy maybe, because there's an awful lot of different features on here. So I think it's just for people to play and to have a look and just to see what they think, really. Just to add to that, there's also the little eye at the bottom down here once you hover over it, and that gives you the copyright information. So that's the information about where all those different data layers have come from. So contains Historic Environment Scotland and Ordnance Survey data, and the Canmore data, obviously, which is licensed under Open Government License. So all that information's there as well. And even these little links down here in blue will take you to, so it'll take you to QGIS as well, which was obviously used to produce this, and also National Library of Scotland, where some of the data layers, the maps came from. So go back up here again. So the main things to note are this little key only opens up when you hover over it. Same with the information down here. You've got two search functions, a general one, which is the little spyglass, and the one for the camera features, which are the binoculars. And then you can navigate with your plus and minus or with your mouse. I think that's probably gone through the basics. So if anybody has any questions on that or would like to know any more. Or do you want to add to that, Jill?
No, if anybody has any questions, either raise your hand or unmute yourself and just ask away.
Okay, can I start, please?
Yeah.
I'm just so amazed by this. Thank you so much, Sarah and Jill. It's absolutely superb. Not too busy from my point of view. But what I would like to ask, I've got two questions, so I'll ask the first one now. Is it possible that sites are duplicated in different layers? So, for example,
yes, it will be.
Right. Okay. So
yes, it will be because this is that's
that will appear on the castles, but it also appear in Canmore.
I think the idea with that is that if you're someone that's only interested in castles or only interested in the churches and graveyards, you can turn off everything else.
Yeah.
That makes it busy. So if you want to turn off and we just want to look at churches, and we can go all through that, and of course it then makes it a lot easier for you to study those and to look at those and to go, oh, well, there's one missing, or I don't think it's picked up on this, or that's unusual, or so it just makes your search easier. So yes, there are, and also obviously if you look at turn on the scheduled monuments, those will be duplicated as well, because you may have something that is on Canmore that's also a scheduled monument that may also be a listed building. So you are going to have duplications of that. But equally, that's important because you will know that your site is a scheduled monument as well as something else as well. And so you'll get slightly different information about it. The same with the listed buildings. You'll know that it's a listed building. And that, in fact, if you click on the listed buildings, it will tell you the category of the listed building, and it actually takes you to the portal for listed buildings, where you can find out more about why it's listed in that way. So each of those layers is giving you slightly different information. It may be about the same feature, but you'll get slightly different information about it. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. I hope it makes sense for everybody else as well. So unless does anybody else want to jump in at this point, or shall I just go on and ask the second question?
Carry on.
Okay. So how does the map, you mentioned that the map was pretty up to date. So how does it get updated? Is that a physical thing that the forum will be doing?
Yes, that is something that the forum will be doing. I'll probably have to help with initially, because I've supplied the actual data layers. I've actually supplied on the Google Drive for the forum. So all that, the data package is there along with the QGIS project and the symbology layer. So that can be, because that is a geodata package, which can be updated and added to, but you'd have to do that yourself. So it's basically like having a list of everything that's on there that you can change and add to or take away, but it would then have to be republished as a web map and relinked. But that is fairly simple to do once I can show you how to do that. So that will depend on who it is that takes over that role or takes on any kind of development for you.
Okay, thank you very much. We might be looking for volunteers. Well, we definitely will be looking for volunteers. Thank you, Sarah. Jill, back to you.
Any more questions, please? Everybody dumbstruck? That's not like you lot.
Well, you know what it is? It's that Sarah does such a good presentation that she preempts all the questions by answering them before they're even asked. So that's down to a piece of good work from Sarah.
It's either that one or everybody's going, what is she talking about?
Well, I think most of us have done at least one of the sessions. So I hope it's not all.
Yeah, no, you'll recognise some of the terminology.
Yeah.
The thing that I was quite pleased about is it did actually, I was having a go on my phone, and although the screen's obviously quite small, it does actually, it loads pretty quick, and it's pretty reasonable. It's a little bit fiddly because obviously you're having to use your thumb and forefinger to kind of do the zooming and that, but it actually works reasonably well. It's pretty good.
Yeah,
So that means if you're out and about walking, you can fairly easily.
You could check on the site, yeah, and about the information about it, definitely, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think, I mean, as a pictorial description of what our heritage in Argyll and the islands is pretty amazing. You know, we tend to see one or two places featured in so much of our publicity, but this really shows us just how much we've got everywhere.
Yeah, interestingly, on the map that we're looking at now, two of the islands, one is Ulva, which is just off Mull, towards the top left hand of the screen there, yeah, and this other one here, which I think is that Ling down there? They're almost blocked out completely,
yeah,
because of sites. And look at Tyree as well. That, you know, you can see Mull, but you can't see Ulva and Tyree and that other little island. I'm sorry, you know, because of the absolute huge number of sites of interest.
And of course, there will be more. There will be more that aren't on CanMore, that aren't recorded, that people are still finding. Like on Ling there, like I say, there was a lot of those sites were found when they did the LiDAR scanning.
The LiDAR, yeah.
So it just shows you how many. I mean, I imagine that Mull, I expect it has a whole lot more than is showing up on CanMore or anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting
yet to be
that
discovered, or that people know locally and haven't been recorded.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, there's certainly, you know, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, which may be a major update when they finally put the CanMore and Pass Map and everybody else's data together, because, you know, there is clearly a lot of information and the behind the scenes RCAM stuff from the wardens and the field officers, because there's a lot of stuff that isn't yet in the public domain. That, you know, so whilst Ling is up to date on their LiDAR stuff, there's a lot of stuff that's in RCAM's CanMore, wherever they might call it, and they're in the process of putting Pass Map, CanMore, and all the rest of it together. Now, when that happens, that's going to, you know, probably be another game changer. And if nothing else, it's also a good competition, because, you know, let's get all these other areas as covered as you know, the ones, you know, the Ling and
yeah. I mean, the other thing that I noticed is that there are, obviously, as I've been going through, there are positional inaccuracies as well, but particularly with the CanMore. There's some of them when I'm looking, I'm going, I'm not sure I don't think that's correct. But again, I think, you know, if you're local to a site and you look at it and you think that's not right, that's been recorded incorrectly, the position of where it is, or there's details that are wrong, I think it highlights that as well. So
well, look,
it might encourage people to kind of get in touch with them.
We've got Andy, who is an archaeologist, and he lives on Gometra, which is right at the tip of Ulva, but he actually runs a business on Ulva. And he's put his hand up, so
I'm just going to ask.
Okay, Andy, it's with you.
So I had to check if you can hear me.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Be loud and clear.
Well, that's a novelty because usually out here doesn't work. So yeah, I think Anne was raising the point. We're doing quite a lot of work on Ulva at the moment. I've spent 7 years kind of driving to and from across Ulva and picking up. I think there's probably about 1,000 sites that are not yet recorded onto anything. What is the best, because this has been umming and ahhing between, we've got Edinburgh University out here, for instance, as well. So in collaboration, we're kind of umming and ahhing about the best way of getting this stuff out into the open. You are putting everything through Canmore, aren't you, really? Is Canmore your main?
Yes, if you created your own map and then made that public, then we could link to it. Is that right, Sarah?
Yes, well, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you have, do you have all of these finds that you have, do they all have positional data with them? Have they been recording with GPS or?
Well, yes, they're on QGIS. So
yes. Well,
they went through Google Maps into QGIS.
Yeah.
But at the moment they don't exist in a public domain. No. And the question is, do we throw them all onto Canmore so that therefore they're reflected onto this map here? Would that make the element sense? Rather than people privately submitting individual data sets, you see what I mean? I mean, obviously they've got to be recorded publicly at some point.
Yeah. Well, I suppose because obviously it's because Canmore is the site, isn't it? It's Historic Environment Scotland, and it's so it has to be, that's the official site where from when, I suppose that's the standard, so it should be recorded there, because obviously it comes with all of the metadata of who found it and where and what it is and the dating and everything. So that would be the formal process that should be gone through.
It's a bit tedious because you have to put every site up as an individual entry and fill in the form as you do. I've done a few already for Mull. I mean, when you look at Canmore, if you're looking at certain sites on Mull, you'll see that it might tell you that I've put them up there. So the fact that you've discovered as much as you have, Andy, it's going to be one of those dark winter nights jobs.
But the other thing is, I mean, a quick fix would be to, if you wanted it out there quicker and you wanted it on this, if you have it all in QGIS already, it could be added as another layer specifically for you.
That's what I was thinking when
with your own symbology. And it could, am I right in saying that? And then could just go on the forum website anyway? Or,
absolutely,
yeah.
Because then you're in control of it.
Well, because obviously it's going to be a slow process to get anything updated on Canmore, so it could be some time before that happens. But if you wanted it out there as a resource for everybody, then
yes. Well, what I'm worried about is like what happens quite often. I mean, have been surveys done on Ulva, kind of walkover surveys, things like that over years, but they have existed purely as physical documents. They have never been put onto anywhere. Should I be run over by, I wouldn't say a bus and all, we have no road, run over by an errant quad bike? How do you, if I was to kind of go down the Canmore route, it will take years and years and years and years. Whereas if I could publish something, we could publish something now, at least it's out there in the public domain and it's recorded in a digital format. That's what my concern is.
Or, I mean, you could do, it wouldn't even have to go on here. If you want to do your own web map, it would be easy enough to do it yourself. I mean, it's and publish it.
Yes, but I think pulling into this is also quite important because I think it's
but if you publish it as your own, you've then got control of the content. And if it's added as a layer to here, then it's part of this whole this whole database. Because currently we don't have much. We have the little ones that we put on. We're not going to be maintaining huge databases for other people at the moment. We don't have the resources. So it's much better if you, Ling, and everybody else who is doing your own maps, do your own. You are then in control of them, but we can add them as a layer
Yeah.
And when you update your layer, then then what happens? It goes through that way.
That sounds perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
Yes.
What about if we Zoe, I can see you've got your hand up.
Right.
But what about if we have another, like the binoculars one that takes you to Canmore? Could we not have other buttons, say, there, so you can look at the over things, or
The layer would give you that. In the legend, it would be
on
an
the other
overlay.
side.
Yes, it would be an overlayer. So that's
Right,
where you
okay.
would. Yep.
Yeah.
But you could also, at the moment, I can stick in Ulva, and that shows you all the stuff that's on Canmore on Ulva. So there you go.
Yep.
Where's it gone? I can't even see it at the moment.
It's
Yeah,
in the middle. Yes, there it is.
I could just see it. Yeah. I could just, there we go. I've lost control. It zoomed in too much. There we go. Let's try it again. You can tell it's getting late in the day for me. I've been up a long time. Let's try that again. But yes, if you had your own, because again, it would be the copyright, the ownership of it would be for you. So it would be a separate layer. It wouldn't be within anything else. I think that's probably the best way of doing it.
Zoe?
Yeah, I'm just following up from what Sarah was saying, just to say that it does take time. Our LiDAR survey was actually done in September 2020.
Yeah.
By the time it was processed by HES, which they kindly did for us, part of the whole package, that was sometime quite late in 21. Then it, as you say, didn't get up onto this portal, and it's only quite recently materialized. Sue will know that we've been doing the walkover survey through ATFA for many years, and we've just printed last month, I think it was. We had the launch of the survey report, volume 1, which is very capacious. And I'm not quite sure, I'd have to check with Dougie as to whether all those have yet made it onto Canmore, and whether all those have made it onto all these other things as well. So there's probably an ongoing process all the time, because there's always quite a big lag wherever HES is involved, because they have got perhaps more jobs and fewer staff, and
I mean, my feeling is, if you have your own information, your own data, you've done your own surveys, and you have ownership of that, then technology now enables you to do so many things that you don't. When it all finally ends up on camera, or finally the LiDAR appears, or finally, but you can actually take it into your own hands, and you can publish stuff yourself, and you can show the world what you've got and what you've done, and so that it's there as a resource. I think you're quite right in that if you wait for it to go through the usual processes, it's years, because they don't have the people to be able to do it. And again, you don't know how much of a priority it is as well. So it can, like you said, it can be literally years and years before anybody sees it. Which is a real shame, I think.
But it's a good,
particularly at a local level. It's such a resource.
Yep. I think what you've given us, Sarah, is the ability to just do things ourselves on a local level, which will then empower us to do things that are much more interesting, like adding the photographs, adding data from different sources, from there's things that, as you say, Canmore is going to catch up with us sometime. But what you've enabled us to do with the training, which will remain, we've got the training emails, YouTubes, and we're going to keep them, so we can re-pick up this whenever people want to. The WhatsApp group will stick around. This ability for us to be able to do it DIY in a way that just is so much more interesting, I think is just incredible.
And I will, I am available to still help, and I will, if requested, or if there are these little projects, then I will I will give support and help kind of thing, because I'm interested myself. But it's, yeah, I mean, it's you guys that obviously put all the hard effort in, you have all this information. This is just the front end of it for how you share it, really. And it's making the best use of the technology that's now out there that means you can share it and not wait a decade for someone else to do it for you, I think.
And it's certainly going to be something that, you know, I can't imagine funders not funding projects like this for time, because, you know, just look what, you know, how community interactive, how, you know, just how different it is to get heritage into the community domain when we do things like this. That's a real game changer. So, you know, ticks so many boxes.
Just thinking that might be useful for Zoe just to give us a recap on the process of getting the LiDAR survey done. How does one say searches?
Well, I think we'd heard that HES were have an ambition, let's say, or an aim to do the whole of Scotland within the 10 years or something. And we said, well, you know, we were kind of ready, willing and able. We wanted to do it sooner. Could they not fly our way? And they said that they were down, I forget where, somewhere down on the west coast, or Arran or Ayrshire already. And just before they flew back to Ireland, they just nipped up and did us one afternoon in September 2020, because we'd managed to crowdfund the money. They said we needed this amount of money, and we got half of it. And then we thought, right, well, we'll just chuck it out there as a crowdfunding. We got it in about 4 days flat, principally because I think it happened in September 2020 and people hadn't been shopping all year for something called COVID. And so there was actually some money around on the island, particularly amongst the second homeowners, maybe, as well as the residents. And they thought, well, why not? So we did it.
Excellent, excellent.
I think it was a series of extraordinary events, let's say, that it just worked. And they just flew over one afternoon. And then we had to wait really quite a long time before we heard any more. But it was crowdfunding that got the money.
Excellent, excellent.
Karen, would you like to ask your question, or Bernard not?
Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you. So I just recently discovered some heritage in Killian Kilchenzie, and because I'm so new to researching this area, and I have limited time in doing so, is there a way that you can save your searches and build on them as you go through, because you have so many different opportunities in your maps and layers? Is there a way of saving as you go?
What would you be saving?
Well, my husband and I have been to Scotland on a previous occasion, and we're planning another trip because of this new information we found out. We didn't even realize that his family was from that area. And we're very interested in knowing what his ancestors did and where they're from. We would like to be able to, you know, visit. I saw you had graveyard maps. His family were born on farms, just to get a feel of where that information can be located. And being a novice researcher, it takes me a while to digest everything that I'm reading and compiling. So in that respect, just having that knowledge and not going back to it and having to start from square one every time I go to the interactive map.
I'm not sure that you can extract stuff from here or save it directly. I think I'm right in saying, Sarah, but it would be something that Google,
no, you can't. No, that's right. You can't extract it from here because it's purely a web map.
Okay.
But you can from Canmore by site. Yeah, you can certainly do a search on Canmore. So you can link from this to Canmore.
Okay.
And
so there's two things. You could create your own My Canmore account and save Canmore sites. But the other thing you could do is if you go to Google My Maps, and I may do, you can have a look at it later maybe. If you go to Google My Maps, you can actually create your own map from information that you're gathering from everywhere. So, you know, if you've got census information, you can use that. So you can create your own specific map with Google My Maps and put the points exactly where you want. So you can get information that you glean from here and from Canmore and from your census data or your just your research things that you want to do. And Google My Maps is really, really useful for that.
Yeah, the one thing that I hit a wall on with Google Map is the fact that the historical piece, some of the farms aren't located, or the towns that I thought were towns were actually the names of farms, aren't located anymore on the current
Absolutely.
map.
So you use the information you're getting from here,
Right.
and then you can use that to then create your points on your My Map.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for your time.
That's great. Great question.
Mm.
And that's the point. We don't, until people start talking about what they think they might want to use it for, it's learning that whole different in perspective and interaction with a map.
Absolutely.
Are there any other questions? Anybody else want to explore a different part?
I have a question.
Yep.
This is Nancy. What is the website to access this?
Right. We'll come to that. Yep.
The one behind Jill. It's the one you can see behind her.
Well, small question. I haven't got the legend up on my screen. If it's not there, how do I get it, Sarah?
It should. Sarah?
the legend, yeah. All you need to do is when you go in, you hover over it. So you
Oh,
put
I
your
see. Yes, I see. I tried clicking on it, that didn't work. So I've got to just
just hover, and then you can turn off and turn on lots of
yeah.
things.
Yeah, I get that. I didn't quite get the hover bit. Right. Thank you.
And if we
yes.
want to go back and rewatch this recording, how do we go about accessing that?
I will get it up onto YouTube at some point in the future and let everybody know.
Yeah.
Okay. Sarah, if you want to stop sharing for the moment, we can always come back if somebody has questions.
Yeah. Okay.
And I will start sharing. I'm trying to work out where it is I'm meant to be sharing from. If I get you lot out the way. So that's going to be right. So at the moment, this is our very boring website, which just has very boring stuff on it.
I haven't got it. Hang on.
Should be on your screen.
Not yet.
Not yet. No.
Okay, hang on. What have I done? No, I'm not screen sharing. How am I not screen sharing? Come on. Come here.
You need to get it back.
Yeah, no, my screen sharing vanished. That's it. That's better. That's better.
Yes,
I did
we're there.
Fantastic. Thank you. Get that one. Nope. Get out the end of the way. Until I don't do this very often. Right. So that's our really boring website at the moment. Just has blurb and information and people and places where people can join things. So we don't know quite what we're doing exactly for the next website, but I just sort of updated to a slightly more modern look. So if you go to argyllheritage.org.uk/2024, that will give you the new website, and front and center in bright sparkly lights is the link to the new map. And that goes to the page that then describes a little bit about the map, just so that people understand that it's could be slow, give it time, and a little bit about how to navigate. The more we talk to people like yourselves, the more we'll make that, you know, as accurate as we can do. It has a little bit of information on the nearly 26,000 points in total and where they're all from. And counting. And just a little bit more about what we would do. So there's a link to Canmore, and there's a link to the My Canmore. So you know exactly where you're going for those. Having your own My Canmore account is the way to put some of your own details on. It may be something we do next year. If people are interested, is to talk to the folks from Canmore and get them to do some sort of training or some webinars or whatever to get a relationship with them and how we do that. So this is, as I say, it's simple, it's basic, but it's a little bit thing. If you haven't joined, you can join. It's free. We welcome. You get to know what's going on. We have members. Again, this is something we would be planning to make rather more interesting. So we want to get hold of all our members and get them to give us more information and details about who they are. At the moment, it just signposts to them. This needs all updated, and hopefully we'll get other photographs and images that we can play around with on the website. And also on our social media, because at the moment it's mostly mine. We have our own YouTube channel. So you're very welcome to go and nosy there. And that has our conferences on it. It also does have the digital mapping listing, but you have to go through, be a member, and you have to come through us to know they're unlisted at the moment. So they're for members and for members who are part of the digital mapping group. That's going to be for what training we have done and what training we would like to do in the future. So there's nothing very massive on here, but it's the basics. All needs to be rewritten and redone, redesigned, because it's boring as heck.
Yeah.
Oops. And then when I get to it, and once I've got time, there's news and information. I've got to transfer things from the other past site onto this one, which I haven't done yet. So that's what we've got at the moment. What else should we have? What else could we have? So, you know, if you're looking at a local heritage forum, we're representing the heritage sector, from volunteers to all sorts of different people. Come on, what ideas would you like to see? We can't promise them immediately, but it would be really lovely, interesting to know what.
We'll make a list.
Yes, I have
We'll
a
make
pen.
a list.
I have a pen.
Yeah.
Because I could be really mean. I'll start going around from one person to person, because everybody can come up with one idea.
What about book reviews, Jill?
Yes.
Jill, it's Zoe speaking. I've just
Yep.
I can't find myself on here anyway. Never mind. I was just thinking of whoever, I think it was Karen was speaking and saying she was a new researcher, and thinking, well, if you were a new researcher and you were trying to follow your ancestors in Argyll and you knew nothing much about it, maybe we should have an introduction for people coming completely fresh to family history in Argyll, and where they should start by looking. You can't put everything in, but at least we could give them a pointer just to get them going.
George might come in here, because there is a difference between genealogy and family history. So genealogy is basically searching to find your relatives, and then you move towards family history, which is what your family did, you know, what their careers were, what the, you know, their family history, if you like. So you've got to decide how far you're going to go in your genealogical research before you stop and start moving into the family history side of things. So it may well be that we have 2 locations on there, one which is genealogy with some basic stuff on there, and the other one is family history, which could give you links to other websites such as George's and Ian Phillips, who does mole genealogy. So that would help people as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. George, you there?
And Caroline's another one.
Yeah, you're muted, George.
Yeah, sorry, I was fiddling around. Hi, I'm here. Yeah, good point. It would, the question really is what level that should be at. You know, are people coming through to the site, are they going to be wanting a very basic introduction, or do they want something a bit more detailed? And I don't know the answer to that. I suppose we could try doing something that started off pretty basic, but give you pointers to go to other places if you wanted to. And what is the other thing, I suppose, is what is the motivation for this? Are people like somebody who spoke earlier on, are they wanting to plan visits? In which case you do want to give quite a lot of local information as well. Or is this simply, are they doing, if you like, home research and simply want to have a genealogy, they want to have a family tree? So these are questions to think about perhaps, but yeah, I'd be happy to give some thought to what we might do and put together some ideas and see how people reacted to them.
Yeah, that would be great, George. Thank you.
Caroline, you've got experience of people doing their family research here, as well as people exploring Kilbride. What would you see? How do you see we could facilitate you know, this site being a facilitator to both the likes of sites like Kilbride, but also maybe likes of you know, family historians visiting the area?
I agree with what George said. It depends what they're actually looking for, but a lot of people, when they find the names, like Karen said earlier, you find the name of a place, you want to actually find out where it actually was, and this site would be fantastic for that. I think it's an amazing map that you've produced, and I think it will be extremely useful. Maybe more links to further research, because I mean, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of websites out there that tell you how to do these things.
Indeed.
So linking to those rather than rewriting how to do it. So
Absolutely.
people,
Yeah.
and I'm happy to have a look at what sites are out there and kind of suggest some that would be useful to be flagged up on the site for people to take further.
Yeah, signposting, pages that we can signpost onto would be really useful, wouldn't it? Yeah.
There's lots of them, and it takes a while to find them. So
that would,
sort of one-stop shop here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It would be useful to have the parishes, because, for instance, the island of Ling is in the parish of Kilhatton, and that is not obvious.
That's on Sarah's map.
Right. Good.
Yep. It's one of the layers on Sarah's map.
Okay.
So you can take everything else away and just have all the parishes.
Good.
They're community council parishes at the moment.
No, that's fine.
But it's so they're not the historical ones, but you know, if we ever find somebody with a database of historical ones, then that's that they are prepared to share, then that's presumably something that can get added.
That would be extremely useful for doing genealogy. Yeah. Even I sometimes I look at a parish name and I think, where is that? I have no idea where it is. It's in Argyll somewhere, but if you don't know it. So
yeah, there's something about place names generally, of course, not just in Argyll, but perhaps especially in Argyll. What we really need perhaps is what they call, I think, disambiguation, something that explains that this is the Colhatton here, but not the Colhatton there.
Yeah.
And because I think that as the personal names when you're doing research can be very, very confusing to people who don't know the area.
Yeah. I just wondered, because I missed the beginning of this, but is there a layer that shows the landowners? Because I don't know if you've got that, but in the Victorian times, because I'm trying to find I'm looking for taxman's, you know, who they paid it to. Was it like Campbell of Barcadine or Campbell of, it wasn't Campbell of Inveraray, but you know, I just need,
You'd find a lot of that, Joyce, in the archives at Inveraray, wouldn't you?
yeah,
No,
but they don't. Because
that's the only Campbell of Argyll stuff is there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Around our neck of the woods in Ardhatton, I have Campbell of Buckhold and Campbell of Loughnell, Campbell of Ardmaddy, of Ardhatton, Campbell of Inverall, Campbell of Monee, Campbell of Bredoben. And that's just part of it. So, and those boundaries changed.
Yeah.
The clans thing is somewhere where we may start. I now have a list to maybe be added to it in the future of all the different Campbells, which it can be. It will just be a list, but it'll be a list to go. These are the Campbells of Argyll, and it's a very long list.
Yeah.
So. It's fascinating. This is the sort of things to go forward. That will be a long time coming. And there's a huge amount of research yet to work out who owned what and where and when, because it shifted.
Yeah.
I think is there not already in existence something called Who Owns Scotland?
Yes. I don't think that, but you have to pay for that, so it's not in the public domain. Sorry, it is in the public domain, but it wouldn't be a layer we could use without, you know, they paid for that.
Would that be historical though? Because that sounds
current.
Yeah.
Yep.
We were doing some research on the two branches of the MacLeans on Mull, and we actually found a lot of useful information about the MacLeans of Loch Bute and the MacLeans of Bute. Through that Who Owns Scotland website. So.
Yeah, MacLeans of Bute are very interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the most interesting things was that the fact that MacLean of Loch Bute changed the spelling to differentiate himself from the MacLeans of Bute. Yeah.
There's information in the Argyll archives about that.
Yes, there is. There is a lot.
Yeah.
And there's quite a lot in the National Library of Scotland as well. There you go. Who Owns Scotland? Thanks for that, Sarah.
Yes, you have to subscribe. So
yeah, you do.
I'm not giving it away.
Yeah.
I was wondering about some of the things that we're developing in the museum in Bute, which is to do with farming history. We've got a couple of projects on the go. One is recording farm buildings that are going out of use as farmhouses, because the farms are being amalgamated, so that, you know, there's loads of redundant farm buildings, and a lot of those get demolished or they get turned into something else. And the other is the family histories, which are being researched in the museum, of which we've got about 300.
Yeah, that's interesting, Sue, because only this morning, I attended an Argyll and Bute Council planning meeting, because there's a farm just up the road from me, and it has a barn that it's used. They're tenant farmers, but it's used this barn for ever since it took on the tenancy, and now the landowner wants to turn it into accommodation.
Yes.
So there's been a lot of objections that the planning application went in first time in May, and it's been reviewed. I think today was the 4th time it was reviewed, but the planning application was approved this morning, which I came away from that meeting in complete disgust. So, because I mean, it's taking away the use of a farm building. All right, the owner has offered to erect another building for the farmer somewhere else, but that's
Yeah.
hardly the point.
That's not the
And
point.
yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is, if that farm building had been on the 1861 register, we could have stopped any development, but it wasn't registered when the other farm buildings were registered, which is a great shame.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh dear.
An 1861 register.
Yes, it was something to do with I think it was 1861. It's not a census, it's something else. And it was Alison that found it for me down at Inverary.
Nice.
So,
Is that a Duke of Argyll thing, or is that a pub?
I can't remember what it was. I was, you know, it's a few months ago since I was trying to find whether it was already noted. I mean, all it needed was to have it shown on a map at that time, and it just wasn't. So
it doesn't have any protection in that sense.
No, yeah. So now it's going to become.
It's got archaeology just right behind it as well. It's the estate map for the 1812 estate map is, unfortunately, actually it does incorporate that farm from Olver because it's part of the same estate, but it's doesn't shown on the 1812 estate map for some reason. But there is archaeology just right behind the back wall of that building. So, but I don't think the current owner has any interest in such.
Well, interestingly, Andy, this morning they said that there were going to be conditions. Now, I don't know what the conditions are. I mean, members of the public weren't allowed to speak at this meeting, so it was just the councillors in the planning department and the planning department anyway. But I think what we need to do is to try and make sure that there is some sort of archaeological work done on that site before any building, you know, any changes to the building take place.
No, but that's not always easy to organise when it's if it doesn't have particular status as a listed building or anything like that.
I think this is one of the big issues, is if you got agricultural buildings that have been in use for a very long time, have a significant historical importance to the area, both into the local area in terms of, but also for the wider area, but then they have no protection whatsoever. They can be basically changed into holiday homes and.
Well, that's exactly what's happening here.
You know, it's just, you're losing a buyer that's been a buyer for 300 years.
They're just neglected so long that they are not worth, you know, nobody's going to bother to reuse them, so they just get demolished.
Well, hopefully having a map that people can access easily, and we can.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, you know, this is something up there.
One of the things that we would please ask is if anybody has websites of their own, or any other resources, where it's not currently, it's on this separate directory, but it will be live on its own. If anybody has a website, please get in touch, and we can let you know when the site's up and running. And therefore, please, will everybody else link to it and share it and incorporate it in their websites, because that's how we will get it out there. It would be really great, because obviously sitting on our own little website, it doesn't get an awful lot of attention. That's one of the things when we were talking about developing the website, is the more, you know, it's that to develop it bigger is going to be a big project. That's why we want to know your feedback. Is to the more content that is on a website, the more traffic it gets. So we will get more people coming and falling over the information that we can signpost out to you all as well. You know, it's a mutually, you know, we're mutual back scratching comes in. The more content, the more links, the better everybody gets the heritage of Argyll and Isles shown up. Zoe, you had your hand up. You're mute.
How's that?
Thank you.
Yeah. While you're making a list of things, Jill, 2 points come to me. One is something called the OS Gazetteer, which I haven't really explored much, but I understand it has a list of all the places, old farms, etc., all put on some of the
Yes.
old original Ordnance Survey maps.
Yes.
But I'm not very familiar, but I think it would be worth looking, especially if we're thinking of places that are no longer on modern maps, although the old Ordnance Survey maps on the National Library of Scotland might help a bit. And secondly, while I'm thinking about is in the Oban Library, for instance, they have a map of the Argyll historical parishes which are used on the censuses. Now, I'm not quite sure where it comes from. It probably comes from the Edinburgh Registers or the censuses of Scotland's people, I'm not sure. But there is a useful map which has got the names of the historical parishes.
One of the one of the things I'd thought of along those for the community council links on our map is whether or not we could add a link to the statistical accounts.
Yeah.
There. So is that possible, Sarah?
It's feasible, yes.
Yeah,
It would take a little bit of work too, because you'd have to obviously link the individual. Yeah. But yeah, it's doable. Yeah.
Yeah, because because each of those is a web link, so it's a very simple web link to each of those. And can you put more than one web link on to something like a place?
Yes.
Because there's two.
Yes, you just have to add another field in your attribute table with a different link in, so that when you get your little box, that bubble that comes up, you have URL 1, URL 2 for the different and what they are. So yes, it's also feasible, but with work.
No, future.
But yeah, that is definitely feasible.
Is this beginning to explore? We've got a fantastic resource, but it's beginning to explore what else can be done.
Yeah.
And how much? Yeah.
I think there are, when I was looking at the councils and you've got the community parishes, and there were various kind of historic parish lists, and they were all slightly different. So that's where I would need someone to kind of go, well, what exactly, which one? Because they keep changing and the boundaries change, and so like all of these things, there are blurred lines, aren't there? So it's quite difficult to but that also I think is probably would be fairly easy to find or to do. But yeah, once you start talking about actually adding links in to each of those features, then doable, but with some considerable amount of work, I would say.
Yeah.
It might be just better to have a web page to that effect rather than putting it all on the web map.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Can we hear from some of our quiet people what they think they might use the other, just so we get some other ideas, the map for, or even the website for? You're all hiding. Any more voices, or are you going to just no problem at all? Just giving you the opportunity.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or put in the chat. Put in the chat.
You can put it in the chat. You're very welcome to put things in the chat. Yes. Kirsten, do you think we can possibly get this onto the charts website?
Hi. Yeah, I was thinking about that entire time. There's so much there, and so much information that I think everybody'd be really interested in. So I'll shoot you an email, because I think also on social media, I'm sharing it with people just because I have a lot more followers than we do members on the website as well. And we've got a newsletter coming up, and I think it would really interest people.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great work. It's really, really great to see it come all together as well.
Yeah.
So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And yeah, I'll just follow on from Kirsten. My name is Mary Morrison. I'm actually up in the Outer Hebrides, but I'm working charts, and we're developing. Anne and I have been in touch because we'll be doing a webinar at the end of November around trails and mapping, and that's both with kind of open studios and kind of arts trails, but also, you know, it's a real opportunity to, you know, share this fantastic resource with people as well and connect them to it. And yeah, so we'll be doing that. So, and I'll work with Kirsten to promote that event as well. So hopefully that'll get out to your members.
From my point of view, it's a tremendous resource, because being out on the western end of Gomerton, far away from anywhere, but we've got ACFA coming in next year, we hope, and to link up, particularly on the coastal aspects, is very important, because I think Ling obviously has had quite a lot of survey work done and interpretation, and we'll find a lot of similarities, which is quite hard to dig out unless you go deeply into the academic literature and the stuff that's not easily available. Even excavation up on Mull, which was done a few years ago, it was quite hard, as Anne knows, because she's been digging through the archive for me, to actually look at the data in there in a way that actually you find the similarities coming out and you can learn from what's been looked at before. So a map like this allows to build up relationships. So I think that's the important thing, rather than seeing things in isolation all the time. And the fact that, particularly on the coastal fringes of the islands, a huge amount of communication and acculturation up and down the coast has been going on for millennia. And so therefore, what you find here is probably matched by what you find elsewhere, which is quite hard to do from Canmore, particularly when you get to the remote areas, because Canmore just hasn't got the data at all. It's just not there. So you find those little pockets like Tyree, like Egg, like Ling, places like that, where you can learn on what's gone before. Because in Ulva, there is almost no recording of stuff. So you are very much dealing with an unknown area, which has got very little way of work done so far.
Right.
Definitely looking forward to your new map.
They just broke this morning, to tell the truth. I lost all my layers for some reason.
Oh no.
Oh.
Yeah.
I feel your pain.
Yes.
Anybody who does GIS, you go, oh yeah, no, I know.
Yes.
Well, I have to say that after, was it the first session you joined us in, Andy? And he was straight into developing his own QGIS map, right, almost from the go-get, you know, so.
How have you found it? Can I just ask? It's interesting to me how you've kind of.
Well, first of all, I had to find a computer, which is interesting, because I had a Chromebook, so that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So I got quite an ancient computer, but it kind of works. I've done a lot of database and web stuff, so it kind of made sense. Yeah. But I did find that QGIS kind of falls over on itself a few times, like not massively, like losing all the layers was a bit of a pain, but you can then recreate them. For me, I think it's amazing when you start to actually see the data in a map form, how it begins to form relationships, and you can then, particularly from my point of view, it creates areas of interest, because you begin to see where things begin to bunch around certain features in the landscape, and then you begin to build up an idea that these areas were quite important places in not only historical but prehistorical times. So we're beginning to then look at, rather than looking at the island and just the whole thing, beginning to look at certain areas, because the idea that what you might learn in one area could extrapolate across the wider terrain. So,
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So
once you start, I mean, again, for you, I think if you could get LiDAR data, you then add the elevation layer to that, then it really starts to show up the relationships between things.
I mean, Ulva hasn't even got aerial photography.
No,
it hasn't even been aerial photography. I mean, it's just that there is a complete dearth. One thing, interesting to look at the fetch data, which was interesting, overlaying the fetch data onto the maps, because that was something that came out of Shane McLeod and Alexander Sandmarks, and they're used to looking at north sites, and actually it has revealed quite some interesting things, which one very, very, very interesting thing, but I can't say what it is, but it come out of that picture. It's like, oh, and I don't think we would have looked at that without being able to overlay things like fetch data and stuff like that.
Have you got anybody with a drone that you know that can do some aerial imagery? Or
there is a point, at one point we will probably be able to get, it's just such a big terrain with very difficult access. So you need someone with a big drone who can fly it.
The good thing about increasingly there's lots of little private companies who are popping up, and if you do a search, and they're using all sorts of really quite innovative things in order to be able to capture data. I mean, we've recently sort of like people with balloons putting them up to capture stuff. There's like solar drone type thing. There's all sorts of people are using now. So it's getting cheaper. It's also getting cheaper as well.
Yeah, I think a balloon drone on Ulva would be very quick.
That would be it would be like gone in a flash kind of thing. But it was that was.
We did have a film company on Ulva week before last. You'll all have heard of Banjo Beale. Banjo is has got some big plans coming up, and so this film company called Hello Halo were on Ulva filming, and they were filming using a drone, and it was just such a shame that it was a very tight schedule. So they did about I think it was something in the region of 4 hours filming in order to get 5 minutes of finished film to use as a pitch to television companies for Banjo's next program. But if we could have only had another day and somebody with a quad bike to get them around, we could have done an awful lot. So I don't know, it may be that we can persuade Wendy to come back, or the guy with the drone. So it's a case of sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know that's important.
There's been a couple of questions about the website. We are hoping still to get someone else to do a better website. I have to chat with Zoe and Anne and others. We could just transfer what I've done over. For the moment, where the 2024 directory will stay open. It's live, it's there, so you can get the map that way. When and if we either get someone else to do the website or we just end up with what I've done, the 2024 bit will disappear. So it'll just become argyllheritage.org.uk link. What I could do tonight is actually create a link, put the page details, the website, sorry, the heritage map details onto the existing site, so that it becomes the 2020. So it's in both places. So it's argyllheritage.org.uk/Argyll Heritage Map. So I will do that later on. So it's in both places. So it'll, when the website's refreshed, it'll just be a better looking page.
Good.
So does that answer both questions?
That's great. Thank you, Jo.
Yep. And yes, it's open to everybody. Anybody can go mooch around and have a play and say link to it any way you like. But so I'll get a proper link. It'll be the slightly more boring version of it, but the details will be there.
Right, that's good.
The rest is all fairly superficial. I mean, there is content we want, with the website, particularly want to get a better members area, so that we are promoting the members better. And there's, those sorts of bits of information that we wanted to add to the website, to a sort of upgraded website. We'll see how we get on with that. There are very good reasons why we're just slightly short of resources. To which end, we have our AGM coming. We need directors. If you know anybody out there, please, 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 please think of people you might know who could join our little merry band, which is getting littler. Alison, our secretary, is stepping back. We've known this for a while, so we definitely need a secretary. Our vice chair is about to be a mummy again, and very about to be a mummy again, very, very, very about to be a mummy again. So we will be, she will be somewhat preoccupied. So we would love to see new faces, new voices, new ideas. We all meet online, so location doesn't matter. We need more perspectives from different people from different places.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thought I'd get that bit in, Anne.
Yeah, thanks for the plug, Jill. Yeah, thank you. And you can see up on the screen now is the date of the AGM, and we're doing the AGM online again this year. So what we'd like is anybody who would like to come and have a, what do we call it, Jill? A mad 5 minutes or a 5-minute flash or something.
We could do about, yes, we could do a 5-minute. Well, it started with the Archaeology Scotland 1 Minute Madness, where
Madness.
yes,
Decided
that's
to
right.
extend it a bit
In
and give people a chance.
Yeah.
So start thinking about doing your little bit of spiel about your organisation in time for November the 14th.
It was, yes, it was part of their community conferences, and it allows you to either ask for help or to share your news or share a project or literally almost anything at all. Just share something interesting. I say several people have said, yeah, we need help with this, so funding projects or whatever. Yeah, it's so it doesn't have to be 1 minute. We're a smaller group of people, so it can be a little bit more generous than that. Eve was really strict, and you got a 1 minute bell, and you were pointed off the screen.
Wow.
But it's a great way of getting to know what's going on in the area.
Yeah.
So, Anne, do you think we should do Dukas Ulva then?
Yes, I do. Yeah. Do you want to
think so.
talk about that, Andy?
Sorry?
Do you want to talk about that? I mean, do you want to tell everybody about that now? And what it is that we're doing, and about Alistair White's work on place names, which would particularly interest George. And it's one of the reasons why I suggested that we might have relevant books being reviewed on the website, because Alistair's just about to release a book about place names in Argyll. So yeah, go on. A bit about Dukas Ulfa.
I'll try and keep it short, but unfortunately it goes on for hours, and usually people fall asleep by the second hour. So so Ulva and so it's been Ulva really, but Gomerta is still a privately owned island. So it's kind of I live on Gomerta, and it's we kind of include it, but it's basically on Ulva. Ulva was substantially cleared in the middle of the 19th century, and after that there was minimal amount of people living on the island. So really there was not much known apart from a certain amount of documentary evidence. So when I came to Gomerta, there was almost no concept of any archaeology on the island, which was outstanding considering the island's covered in it. There had been various surveys done at a pace because it's a completely remote island. There are no roads, only 2 tracks across what is 5,000 acres of upland area and coastal fringe. So the surveys had all been done on a day when they all had to get back for the last ferry at 5:30. So it's all that kind of built historical environment stuff where they run around and they had taken notes of what they could actually see. There had been a lot of work done by Edinburgh University for the past 30 years on a cave, Ulva Cave, which has become a very important international site for Mesolithic. But apart from that, nobody had really gone out any further into the landscape and done any comprehensive survey work. So when we got to the community ownership, there was a concern that I raised was that we were developing new things in the landscape that we didn't know what we were developing it. We start removing things that weren't recorded. So I wanted to create a base layer before we started kind of developing the island, and it kind of went from there. So we've got a group now, which Anne's on the group, and a woman out of Germany whose ancestors lived on the island at the clearance, who's Emiria Salmon. She's an anthropologist. And we've got Alistair White, who is from Glasgow University, who has local connection to Mull. And we've got Edinburgh University as well, who are very keen to support. We've got various projects kind of in the pipeline, one of which is a woodland, a project about the social history of the woodlands that were planted around about the beginning of the 19th century by one of the landowners at that point. We've got spreading out of the landscape a detailed survey because we're beginning to pick up some odd features. Things like particularly Neolithic, Mesolithic, Bronze Age, which just haven't been recorded at all. And they're beginning to pop up all over the place because the island is mostly covered in bracken at the moment. So they've been hiding away, or they've just been interpreted as part of the townships, which so things like what look like to be like ring cairns or ringed cairns begin to pop out. Neolithic chambered cairns looks like, shell middens, all these kind of things, all that need recording. So I've been going around last couple of years just recording everything I can find, getting the location data for them, taking pictures. But we kind of need to start moving on and creating a proper kind of archive that's publicly accessible, which is one of the things I'm working on. Plus getting ACFA to come in next year, who are going to help me with some of the surveying on the townships, I'm hoping. Although I kind of understand they're quite keen to go and see all the prehistoric stuff. But unfortunately, all the prehistoric stuff is way over on the west side of the island, and it's really hard to get to. So you kind of, it's not easy to walk to. So, and we've got other projects like place names. So Alistair White is working on the place names, the Gaelic place names for Ulva. We've got some really interesting Norse stuff coming out, which is what might possibly be Norse burials on the west side of Ulva. Which would explain quite a lot of Norse activity going on the west side of Ulva and the gap between Ulva and Gometra. So it's kind of, so we've got kind of, I think about 15 people, Anne, do you think, on this, on the group so far? And of course, we've got a huge amount of people who've got ancestors come from the land who come back every year who want to go to the various townships from where their ancestors came from, some of which are really hard to get to as well. So they've got to know where they're going, which is interesting, where I think it works both ways, which is that people who are finding out about their family also bring back interesting bits of information and documentary evidence that we can use ourselves. Because we've got a census pass around the island, but we don't know the path that the census took. So when they gave the numbers to the houses in the townships, we don't know which ones they were talking about, because we don't know their direction they took around the island. And we're beginning to work that out from people coming back and saying, we can actually say, from the letters that they've got from their ancestors, working out which houses they were talking about. So it's beginning to open up the landscape. I call it that, what I call it is giving a chronology that's kind of missing. There's a kind of 3,500 year gap, which is Ulva Cave, nothing, and then 1777. And you just have to fill in that annoying little wee little gap, because it's just, there's nothing there. So it's from an archaeologist's point of view, it's fascinating, because I've never crossed from a landscape that has had no work done on it whatsoever. It's a kind of a virgin territory in that respect, which is why I'm interested in linking up with other things like Tyree, like Ling, or whatever else, where there's been more work done. We've had people on the ground for a little bit longer, because it is kind of learning to interpret what's already been interpreted elsewhere. I'll leave it at that anyway.
Fascinating.
Mm.
That's amazing. I mean, it just shows how much we have yet to learn, and even on places we think we know quite a lot, and how much it all got taken for granted. I have the same problem with Ardhatton. Mine's too big, but you know, trying to work out, you know, where we start with that. I mean, I've got to start again in lots of ways, but you know, there's so many layers. There's, you know, you look at each of the different maps where it is, you know, it has been mapped, but then you look at Canmore, and so many of the records on Canmore actually go to a book that was written in 1884, And it's a sort of semi-fictional book, and it's, you know, yes, some fascinating drawings, all the rest of it, and there's a lot of accuracy, but it, you know, you look at Canmore, it says 1975, and you actually realize that the only thing that's referenced is 1884. This book, it's not actually been looked at ever since. It's just there.
There is an interesting thing, which is like archaeologists, when they can't interpret it, something they call it, oh, it's ritual, which is an excuse to say, well, we don't need to interpret because it's ritualized. I've come across a new one, which is that because in the Mull and up the inner Hebrides, the Norse aspect is really hard to differentiate. There's very little evidence of Norse. People say, oh, it's hybridized. And I think that's another way of saying it's ritual. So because you say it's hybridized, you don't have to explain it. And actually, I think it's there. It's just that we're staring at it. It's just that we're not seeing it for what it is. So
yeah. I think Andy mentioned the desk-based survey, and so this is the desk-based survey, 84 pages of it, of Ulva, and it's full of absolutely incredible information. It's a super bit of work, and this was started by Emiria, and a few of us contributed towards it, didn't we, Andy? So that's a very useful starting point for future work. Yeah,
fascinating. I think, you know, we could keep on doing these. Hopefully we'll see if we keep on doing these heritage cafes. We'll need to come up with some other ideas, because meeting everybody like this is just, yeah, I think there's just so much to share and so much inspiration.
Yeah.
And it's lovely to have Nancy here again, loyal Nancy coming in, and you know, other people in America, just phenomenal.
Oh, I mean, and the gentleman we had at the beginning from Syria.
Oh yes, he's vanished, hasn't he now?
Yes. Yeah. You know, he's involved in heritage and what have you in Syria. I did actually Google him before I gave him the details.
All right. Oh dear.
Not the, but yes. So yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us, and let us know what you think. You know our email.
Before you go, Zoe's got her hand up.
You see?
No, I think
you're muted, Zoe. Can't hear you.
I'm on now. Just to say, if we get back to the heritage map, I'm looking forward to looking through that heritage map now that Sarah's shown us it to some extent, and it looks like a fabulous piece of work. So I'd like to add my thanks to everybody else's thanks.
Certainly, yeah.
Super piece of collaboration between Sarah and Jill. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah,
it is. It's great. Well done.
Thank you.
Right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will.
Oh, there's Karen, who's yes. Thank you very much for this very informative discussion. As an FYI, I located the session advert.
Brilliant. Thank you.
On Facebook. Excellent. Thank you very much, Karen.
Well, feel free to join us. We are free.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hi, Margaret. Do you want to say something before you go? No, she's going. That's all right.
Bye.
Thank you. It was lovely to see you all. I am looking forward to playing with this map, and I can see spending hours.
Superb. Thank you, everybody. See you again. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Stop recording.